But having said that, you and I have spoken a little bit. But tell us a little bit about your football pedigree and where it is you've come from to come to this lofty position as the coach of the Glenorchy Football Club.
Well, that's a long story. I'll give you the brief version. In 1996, in November, I finished my last VCE exam, and I was pretty ready to party and, you know, celebrate that. But I had the invite to Sandringham Football Club's first night of pre-season. I thought I'd better go along and do that. And we trained so hard, I got home that night and I still in my clothes. I lay down on my bed and fell asleep, and woke up the next morning. So that was my Year 12 celebration. But from then I stayed in State League footy between Victoria and South Australia, with a year in Ireland playing Gaelic footy in the middle until I retired in 2013. I moved into coaching Frankston, then Box Hill Hawks, and then Coburg. And I got to the end of last year and applied for a couple of VFL coaching jobs and missed out on those. And I was in that what next moment where it's, you know, you sort of work towards something and build up towards something, you don't quite get it. And I got a text message from Tom Cleary from Glenorchy, who I'd coached at Coburg last year, and it was just a photo of the Glenorchy job ad with applications closing in 90 minutes. I thought, okay. So I just sent my resume off. I thought I'll put my hat in the ring, I can always pull it back out. And I got home and I said to my wife, I just applied for the Glenorchy job. And she said, oh yeah, Tassie's nice, we've always liked it when we've gone down there, and we didn't think much more of it. And then I got probably 2 to 3 weeks later, I got home from work and I said, Suze, I think they're going to offer me this job. We actually better figure out whether we want to move to Hobart or not. And in the end, it was a really easy decision. We'd liked it here. We were ready for a change after a long period of time, and certainly haven't regretted it since. It's a beautiful place to live. We've got some in-laws over at the moment, and they're like, wow, this is a pretty well-kept secret over here, isn't it? So yeah, so far so good. Of course, the real stuff starts tomorrow from a senior perspective, and it's easy to enjoy life as a coach in pre-season. Everything you try works and everyone thinks you're great. You haven't had to drop anyone, you haven't had to yell at anyone, you haven't had to play anyone out of position. So, you know, we'll see how things go, but so far it's been great.
Well, of course, the opponent that you're up against tomorrow is coming up from the Bayside suburb of Lauderdale, of course, so they'll be a very hard opponent for you. But how does the list look? I noticed you have Joseph coming back, who of course is going to be a great inclusion, a good Tasmanian fellow, has been up in Queensland. Healthy list at the moment?
Yeah, it's healthy. We're very fit. I think a lot of people sort of underestimated us coming into this year, perhaps because it was a bit of a down year last year, but you know, we think we're good. We expect to be good. You know, how good we'll be remains to be seen, but our expectations are really high. I'm fortunate as a coach. I've got really good senior players. We've got some really exciting young players who perhaps haven't been seen yet, but that's a real focus for me. Like, I walked into this job, there was no under-16 team last year. Claremont and New Norfolk didn't have under-16 teams. Our under-18 team scraped for numbers and didn't win a game and had a percentage of 20. It's like, you know, we're in trouble here. You know, sure, you've got Reece Mott and Jay Bowden and Zach Webster and Braden Webb and these guys, but, you know, that doesn't last forever. And if we don't do something, we're in trouble. And, you know, we'll sink down the bottom and struggle to survive. So that's an area we've really focused on. Sam Cootsy's done an amazing job as our under-18 coach in just generating interest and getting kids, a lot of them who had dropped away from footy. And, you know, anyone knows Sammy, he can pester you and, you know, he can talk the talk, and he just got into these guys' ears and got them back down to the club, and that's been tremendous for us. We've got an under-16 team now, which I'm coaching, and you know, that's been a bit of work too, but gradually we've got the numbers through. We'll have 18 on Sunday, but, you know, 18's what you need, and that's the starting point, and we'll keep building from there. And, you know, we've got another 13 or 14 guys who are under 16 or under 14 or under 18 who are on our senior list. So it's starting to look a little bit healthier. I think we'll be in the high 50s to 60s in that 16 and 18 list altogether. So we've made some progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And, you know, you got to give these guys reasons to be involved and to want to stay involved. You know, we've given a lot of our young guys an opportunity to be involved in our senior program. And it's amazing to see the way they stop acting like kids once they come into that senior program. You know, they role model into that environment. They act a lot differently. You know, in our under 16s, we train with our under 18s, and you see it forces them to be a little more grown up. Last night before the game, we split into under 16s, and they started acting like 14 and 15-year-old kids again. So I think it's just, it's been a great lesson that we've seen, that, you know, you give these kids the opportunity to move up a little bit and see what's possible and be treated like adults, and they respond. So that's something that we'll continue to build on.
I dare say you can see why, when I sat next to him at Campbelltown, why I was impressed. I asked him a question, and the old champion, he spoke more than me, which was quite amazing. But what I was impressed with was take away my Lauderdale perspective, because very much in a football perspective of STJFL, was his interest and intent, and to try and ask me questions about how things were being done at a junior level. And already as a senior coach, to already coach an under 16 team, and identifying where the challenges are of the next generation from Glenorchy, because let's be blunt, we need a strong Glenorchy in Tasmanian football, and I think it's in very good hands, and a great appointment. All the best for the season.
Thank you very much.
Now, our next guest, it gives me great pleasure to introduce, and that is, I'll introduce him, if I can, as a former Carlton coach, because I think that's where he gets the kudos. We'll leave it at that. So I would like now to make welcome the man who is taking over the reins of the inaugural team of the, let me get this, we'll go Tasmanian North Melbourne AFL women's team. Please make welcome Scott Gowans. Well, a very warm welcome. Of course, you're in your home state, in that we are joined at the hip. We are 50-50 in this as we go forward in the AFLW. Of course, there are two new teams in the next season, Tasmanian North Melbourne, and also Geelong. You must be pumped and excited.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It is a very exciting time, and as you said, we are in this together. And I was at Carlton, as you said, and sorry I had to leave there, but the opportunity came up for this role, and you know, if I had to pick one role in the AFLW, this would be the one, because of the Tasmanian component. My background in senior men's coaching was in a little town called Longwarry, which is in Gippsland, and similar struggles to what goes on down here. Not being the main league down there, we really struggle with under 18s, under 16s. But that philosophy sort of stuck with me, that resonated with me, all the people that sit in this room that help build football for the future. I went for the North Melbourne Tasmanian job, and yeah, really in the interview I ended up talking more than Cameron Joyce and Laura Kane asked me questions, because it really was about the opportunity down here, and I could not be more excited. I spent a couple of days with Lee Elder and looking through the academy we've put together for the girls that are coming through, and then speaking to people in the room about, you know, I know this girl and I know this girl, she's only 12 but she's a gun, and yeah, I couldn't be more excited for what lies ahead for all of us.
So we spoke just before, and you were involved in obviously the setting up of Carlton, so you've seen how they've done it, and you must have learnt certain things, what worked and didn't, so it must be great then to start afresh and put your stamp on it.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference, I suppose, the big difference is that we've got 6 months to grow something. At Carlton we had 6 weeks, and it's a little bit different. And the things that we learned were more to do with logistics, how you set up the change rooms, how you integrate a new team into a club that's traditionally just been the one focus. At the same time, Josh Fraser was implementing his BFL side and trying to get that into the fold as well at Icon Park. Just little things. I mean, we trained at night, so some of the girls were travelling from Bendigo to start training at 6:30 and finish at 10 p.m. But then they got 2.5 hour trip home. So it was getting that right where we could look after them. Getting the sprinklers not to come on at 9 o'clock at night during the middle of training, that was a challenge. You wouldn't think it, but it was. It took a good 8 weeks to get that to happen. Yeah, it's all those little things that, and it sounds funny, but they make a big difference to the girls, because there's nothing worse when you're doing a full ground drill and 25 sprinklers come on in the middle of training. So yeah, just I suppose it's not the bigger picture stuff. It's all that little stuff that matters the most. And but you'll be very pleased. I have got one asset from Carlton that I'm taking to North Melbourne. So Dennis Armfield's going to come along and be a skills coach for us, and he's one great human, that man. Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about how it's going to work, in that you're a coach effectively of a team that's in 2 states. And I noticed in the press conference it was that we're going to have half the players come from Tasmania and the rest. So I know that's aspiration and maybe mightn't happen at the start. Tell me how it will unfold.
So basically, so far we had a talent search a few weeks ago that went really well, both from a cross-code athlete point of view and identifying the talent that's here at the moment. So we'll put that together, build the list. Obviously, we announced Emma Carney yesterday as our first signing, which is not a bad get, seeing she just won the league best and fairest, club best and fairest, and everything else that's going around. But it's also important that the top end we get that sort of talent in, and there's a couple more to go, which will be great. They'll announce next week, we think. But from a Tasmanian perspective, it's really important that we spend some time down here, which I'm thrilled to do, and build Tasmanian football. Help at the height. Obviously, I can only help at one end, but it's people that are sitting in this room that are going to build what's going to be in 3 or 4 years' time. So, numbers-wise, we're not sure yet. We just don't know. We identified that we think there's somewhere around about the 6 to 10 mark that are ready to go. There's a whole heap of girls behind that are probably just off it for varying reasons, but they are working hard to get there. So it won't take long, and we might end up with the opposite problem. I don't know. They might have too many to choose from, which would be a great thing to have. But we can say that we are committed to playing 2 home games down here next year over summer. So we'll play one in the south and one in the north. That's confirmed, which is really good. But yeah, it's more the better. The home base, we're not sure where the training base will be, whether it'll be in the north or the south. We just don't know, and it really will vary on what we get. Do we end up with 5 or 6 girls and 3 of them want to come to Melbourne? We're not sure yet, so it's too hard to answer. But we are committed to having a training base here that'll have coaching, high performance staff, doctors, physios, the whole thing. So if a girl is based here, she will have exactly the same experience as the girls at North Melbourne at Arden Street. So that commitment's there, and I'm hoping that I can talk Laura into to be me that comes down. But I think it'll be a matter of looking at the South Australian Northern Territory, the way that they did it in year 1. They did a lot through Skype and coaching, things like that, but I think we can do it a little bit better than that. So what we're hoping to do is actually do it more camp-based. So at the start we might actually bring the girls that are based in Melbourne down and spend a block of time here, then vice versa, the Tasmanian girls back up at Arden Street. So everything's sort of in the open, but we're working really hard to sort that out. And in the next month, once we get the first group of Tasmanian girls and announce them, it'll be really exciting. Then we'll be able to do stuff around the logistical stuff that I spoke about. Just
maybe 2 things. The first one is, so as an STJFL perspective, women's football is growing exponentially, and that's exciting. So they've got a direct pathway and a link to your club. So this will be the recruiting ground. So dare I say it, a Carlton won't come into Tasmania and take the best players. They will go directly to you.
Yep. So we've got a big advantage over the rest of the competition that Tasmanian's our state. So if a girl is the best player in Australia, we can take her at 150 in the draft. Which is a huge advantage for us. And I like the fact that the other clubs, particularly a couple of them that you don't like, think that it's a bit of a disadvantage from the setup because of the segregation. But what they don't realise is that it's not. It's very much we're all in this together, and I can't wait to see what we can do.
And back to that next thing about the draft, I'm interested in that. When the expansion came in the men's, there were a lot of concessions for the Gold Coast and Greater Western Sydney. Does that then pan out for you in Geelong?
Yep. So the way it'll work over the next few weeks, both of us have already submitted a list of sorts to the AFL. They're currently reviewing that list, and it's the criteria for the list was that it can't just be a pie in the sky type list. It had to actually have some substance to it. Girls you've interviewed, and have shown interest in coming, and Geelong did the same. The AFL are now reviewing that, and then what will happen is from there we will negotiate once we know how the system's going to work, because we still don't know from the AFL, because they're negotiating with the PA on whether it's a tiered system or a salary-based system. But once we find that out, which should be next week, we'll then make formal offers to the girls, as will Geelong, and then the AFL will determine whether Geelong need more help or we need more help. Then they will allocate priority picks in the draft, and basically then we'll go, Geelong and ourselves will go at the end of each round in the draft in October.
I guess just one last thing, I'm conscious that everyone has got to get off to work, but there seems to be $1 or $2 around in the male game, and the coaches are very well paid. You must be just cock a hoot to think that you've given away everything else to take up this full-time coaching role.
Well, you haven't spoken to my wife, but no, well, I've got 6 children, so I've got 4 of my own and 2 step, and we're building a house as well. So when I got the role, she said, "That's fantastic. How much does it pay?" And she said, "Are you kidding?" Look, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. And 4 years ago, I was sitting at a table at a thing exactly like this in Gippsland, and I loved my role. And I'll tell you a quick story in a sec about a girl called Katie. But I just couldn't dream of where I am. I'm being very lucky, very fortunate, going through the Vic Country program, getting the opportunity at Carlton, which was an amazing experience, and now this one. And Jodie, my wife's very supportive that it's definitely not about the money, it's more about the opportunity. And I plan to, because coaching's one of those things, I'm well aware that you might last 5 minutes, but while I'm here, I'm going to make every minute count. But a quick story about a girl called Katie. My son Tom, who's now 21, back in 2015 played against a girl called Katie, and she was a larger type girl, really good footballer, but at that stage only had the Vic Metro, Vic Country pathway. There was the youth girls was just getting going in Gippsland in particular. And she tackled my son Tom, and Tom didn't like it very much, and he's got up and chased her down and caught her. Got the free kick paid against him, and then she's given him a little bit of curry, and all through the game they were at each other a little bit. Katie ended up with 5 goals on that day, and Tom didn't get a kick really. But it was funny, after the game I went up to her and didn't know her, and shook hands and said that was fantastic, and quick chat to her mum. Didn't think anything of it, and then when I started Melbourne Uni this year, which is North Melbourne Seconds in the VFL, in walks this girl Katie and says, "Do you remember me?" And I sort of looked at her, I did, but I couldn't place it. And then she said, "I'm the girl from Longwarry that you said well done to after the game." And she's fit, healthy, and I was blown away that you could impact at a junior level, just by speaking to someone. So it was a really big lesson to learn that your impact that you make on players now is, you might not know it at the time, but it's huge. And I think we all play a role in that, to making sure that we do the right thing. It's interesting hearing Jim speak about behaviour on the sidelines. It's funny, the kids look over and see someone screaming, whether it's a parent or anything like that, and it has a huge impact. So I'm guilty of it in the past too as well. Sometimes you look and go, "Oh, geez, I shouldn't have said that." But I think now that the game's gone beyond that, now we're all, participation for all of us is a key ingredient to what we all do.
Fantastic. Well, we're conscious, I know you have to get off to the ABC interview and we've got to go forward, but Scott, congratulations on your appointment, and may we wish you and the Tasmanian girls all the best for the season.
Thank you.
Now to the last part, but the most important part of today's proceedings is the official opening of the season, and Jackie, if I might ask you please to come forward to do that. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Jackie, just sit down. Jackson, where's the old chant?
What a great introduction.
Well, it was. My apologies, and that's why Peter G normally does this gig. You get an amateur up here doing a bumbling job like that. I apologise. I was just conscious of the time there, Jimbo. I apologise. But
I'll be quick.
Jackson Hills is here representing Tasmanian football, AFL Tasmania, and please make him welcome.
Thank you.
Jackie, first time I've trumpeted a minister, I've got to say, so apologies for that. Thanks for the introduction, Hoppy. I'll be really quick because I know people are watching the clock and have got to get to work, and I guess just a couple of quick things from our point of view. I had two funny stories this week. They won't be as good as yours, Scott, but I'll do my best. But one of them was someone called us up during the week. We're helping the STJFL work through an issue at the moment. And it was a parent. Any parents in the room? Just whack your hand up. Okay, so don't take offence to this, please. And speaking of curry, I was getting a fair bit of curry on the phone as one of the blessings of working in AFL Tasmania, as you can appreciate. And this parent had this view that the STJFL was run by a cast of thousands of staff, full-time staff, as you can probably appreciate. That was the expectation in the industry. And I sort of listened for a little while, 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, I think it might have been, and I sort of cut in at the end and said, look, understand what you're saying, and we're helping the STJFL work through this issue. But what I did point out was that it's only this year that the STJFL's ever had their first full-time staff member in Tony Gibson. So I just think there's this expectation in the industry that there's a huge amount of professional staff sitting behind these competitions. And all of you in Clubland know as well, because you're in the same boat, that that's not the case. And all I wanted to say quickly at the start is a massive congratulations for last season to Jim, to Gibbo, to Mick, to Hoppy, to the executive and all the clubs for pulling off what is really our strongest competition in Tasmania, in my view, in terms of its numbers and its innovation and everything else. And I'd take Paul's comment earlier. There is a bit more to do, Paul, and it's a good challenge that we take on as well. But I just want everyone to know that this is one of the powerhouse competitions in Tas, and it's actually leading the way on a number of initiatives nationally too. So I think you should put your hands together for the STJFL. So just a couple of things from me. I think, Jim, you well covered a few of the new initiatives this year. No, you did, but that's okay. And a couple of initiatives we've been working on closely with the STJFL, so I won't cover those again. But I will just talk just briefly to the junior review that we've been doing. And Lee, if you just pop your hand up, Lee Elder, who many of you know. Lee's been leading that process for us. Gibbo's been an asset in that as well, and so have all the clubs. And so just briefly, as Jim touched on, last year we ran a number of surveys online. At the start of this year, we did a number of consultations with our junior leagues and clubs, coaches and administrators, and a number of club presidents in the room also have the beauty of being presidents of senior clubs as well, and so they were involved too. And we felt like we got this good evidence base of what's happening in junior footy. And I don't want to be a bit of a downer, but I think it'd be silly of me to come up here and say to you that everything's rosy, because we know that it's not. But there are some challenges in the system, some really exciting things with female footy. And Lee, I'll get the number wrong, but I think it was 62 teams last year in women's footy across the state, and this year it's
89.
89. It's real positive. It's obviously accelerating really quickly. So that's exciting, leading through to the pathway that we've got the partnership with the Kangaroos, so that's fantastic. Our male system is under a little bit of stress, and I think for us, one of the biggest stats that stands out to me is at the Auskick level, the introductory to the sport, we have 46% churn out of our program every year. Is Sally Donnelly in the room? No, but Sally knows all about this. She's been a massive asset in the Auskick space, and so for the first time in 20 years, the Auskick program's actually going through a transformation. New curriculum, new package, new process, new links to junior clubs, and it's about time. And so thanks for all of you in the room that have been part of that project. But with this junior footy review, what we're just about to finalise it, Lee, I think in the next couple of weeks, and looking forward to coming out and presenting that to all of you with a series of recommendations that we'll work on with our junior clubs and leagues across the state. It's about coaching, it's about facilities, it's about being innovative with our fixtures, it's about our girls' game, our boys' game, but also the transition into senior footy. And that's probably the last thing I'll leave you with. I'll focus somewhere else other than the south, but in the northwest right now we've got 5 senior competitions, 60 senior teams to fill every weekend. Carl's here from the State League. It's really unfortunate for us to lose our 2 sides from the northwest, but that was a factor of those numbers, simple as that. 3,000 males of playing age have left that region in the last 5 years. So that's what we're up against. So I think to Paul's probably made the point of the day, I think, the challenge is to be innovative and creative. We're going to protect what we've got, but also grow. And so for us, we're going to work really closely on Auskick, schools and junior footy this year, just 3 focus areas. So big thanks to everyone involved in the competition at league level, but also to the clubs. You're in the same boat. It's all volunteer run, and we appreciate your work. Best of luck with the season, and I'll let Jackie get up here and say a few words too.
Well, what an omission. That was very insightful, and thank you very much for coming up and saying those words. Now, please, may we welcome Jacquie Petrusma.
Thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. And it's an absolute pleasure and delight to be able to join with you. And I just want to say thank you to Tony and to Jim for the invitation to come this morning. And Tony, I just want to say, look, from talking to you at the start of the proceedings today, I think the league's in very good hands, and I wish you all the best in your role as executive officer. You've, with so many teams or clubs, 20 clubs and 176 teams, but also it's fantastic, to have 32 teams now for women, for the girls playing. I'm a mum of 4 kids and, 2 are girls, and I think for them to have that pathway is fantastic. My dad was a state football player and coach, and I remember they used to, once a year, get women out playing footy on the field. It was more for the blokes' entertainment, and I think we've come a long way now where, our girls can actually actually have that dream of playing in the National League. So, and to assist in that process, I know today we talked a lot about increasing participation, and so that's why during the election campaign we made 2 major commitments. The first is levelling the playing field, which will open up in the next few weeks. It's where we're going to invest $10 million into making our facilities more female friendly to increase female participation. So all the clubs in the room here will have the opportunity to participate in that when it opens. It's you have to match it dollar for dollar, but the aim is to increase female participation quite dramatically in the state. But also it's our Ticket to Play program where 30,000 young people will have the opportunity of getting $100 towards their registration fees to join into your clubs in the future. So that's going to be aimed at parents who are on Centrelink payments, which is quite a big percentage in this state, but we don't want the cost of registration to be a barrier to those young people getting into sport. Paul, I want to say thank you to Cripps. It's wonderful that Cripps is going to invest $30,000 into our young people in this state, and I think for all of us who watched the Commonwealth Games last night, we can see that Tassie can not only do well in Tasmania, but in the national, but also on the world stage as well. And I think that $30,000 that you're investing is wonderful. And I just want to say on behalf of the government, thank you. And like Andrew, I quite enjoy your raisin toast as well. But I have to say, as somebody who worked in health for 30 years, the number one reason my household's always eaten Cripps bread is because you have iodine in your bread, and if we want to increase participation of our kids in this state, it's through eating a good product that has iodine, because that mainland stuff doesn't have it in it, and our kids need that as well. So to all of you, all the best. To all the club presidents, thank you. Most of you are volunteers in this room today, and we just want to thank you, because what you're doing is really helping our state to once again be the home and the genesis of our number one sport, which is football. And I better declare the season officially open too. Thanks, Andrew.
There you go, Paul. So there must be raisin bread going around. I'm not on Pat Malone. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming this morning. It's been our great pleasure to host this event, and all we can do now is wish you well for the season and a very good morning. Thanks very much for coming. Thank you.